Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? So you guys want another 2 reasons that we're most likely to see the exchange rate improve on the Iraqi dinar? You're looking at both of them right there. Likie and Kiaz Azali. Those 2 right there, I spoke about in the past that there was an issue when Maliki's group was in power because these politicians own banks. And when they devalued the Iraqi dinar, they were pissed off about it. They had been running this nice little scam, which made them millions of dollars. We're going to cover that right now. But before we get started, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, now's the time to buy the shine. Head on over to our friends at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code PIMPY, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. So mostly what we're seeing in the news right now is a new government getting ready to start forming. So a lot of the articles are about the new prime minister and the new president and the pressures that they're feeling to form the government ASAP. Now I understand that Iraq went 1 whole year without a government, so I can understand the pressure to want to form a government, but obviously I think there's another agenda behind it. That's going to be part of what we're going to talk about. But first, the government hasn't even been formed under Maliki's people, and already there's a big issue. It says Al-Jabbar reveals theft of more than $2 billion in dollars after leaving the position of acting Minister of Finance. So the question is, did this theft take place before or after the October 10th election? It says the acting Minister of Finance, Jabbar, announced on Saturday the theft of an estimated $2.5 billion in tax funds in the Rafidian government bank. So this is a bank that's supposed to be run by the government. Jabbar, who is currently the Minister of Oil, tweeted on his Twitter account, "The Prime Minister graciously agreed to our request regarding exemption from the duties of the acting Minister of Finance. If you are affiliated with this mess, I'd be concerned too." He pointed out that the results of the investigation that we directed after we were assigned to the ministry and the official evidence of the theft of an amount of 3.7 trillion Iraqi dinars, which is 2.5 billion US dollars, in tax funds. This comes from the Rafidian Bank. Jabbar added it was handed over to the Ministry of Finance to competent authorities, including the Parliamentary Finance Committee, which asked us to do so officially and in the media. The Minister of Oil said, "We did not submit any pressure or bargaining to prevent us from performing our role in protecting public money." Last Tuesday, the House of Representatives voted to terminate the assignment of Jabbar, Minister of Oil, from the position of Minister of Finance. In mid-August, the Iraqi Prime Minister Al-Kadhimi assigned the Oil Minister Jabbar with the task of managing the Ministry of Finance as an agency. The decision to assign came after the approval of the resignation of the Finance Minister, Alawi. The head of the Turkmen Front, Hassan Turan, announced earlier today the assignment of a woman from the competent to the post of the Iraqi Finance Minister instead of Mr. Jabbar, who occupies the position in addition to being the original Minister of Oil. So that's good that they're congratulating each other, but where'd the money go? That's going to be the bigger question. Let me just tell you this. This might be one of the reasons why they're rushing to form the government. What they don't want to find out is that over the past year, the coordinated framework has already been stealing money from the Iraqi people. So if they can get in there quickly, they can cover their own asses and blame somebody else. But already, before the government is formed and started under Maliki's coordinated framework, major issues with large amounts of money missing. Okay, this article is a little older. This came out in, what is that, December 2020? But it makes my point why it is that people should look forward to some changes in the Iraqi dinar exchange rate. If people are going to sit there and tell you, oh, it's because of the oil sales and everything else, they're wrong. The oil sales were a major plus. The foreign asset reserves increased to 90 billion is a major plus. The increase in the amount of gold that they're holding is a major plus. But there were so many other things missing before they could even make a move to increase the rate. I brought this up in the last video that I was challenged to go ahead and make an argument for the 322 rate. I said it wasn't hard to do because Maliki and the coordinating framework, if they grab control of the government, it wouldn't be shocking to me to see them increase the rate. Not up to 322, but definitely an increase in the rate. And that's the case that I made. It was because that these people are corrupt. And Maliki is holding on, allegedly, to a lot of stolen money. And possibly a new amount. So let's go through this article so I can make yet another case for why they might increase the Iraqi dinar. Make another case for why they might increase the Iraqi dinar exchange rate sooner than later. This is in regards to Al-Kadhimi's government devaluing the Iraqi dinar. It says the devaluation of the Iraqi dinar deals blow to pro-Iranian Shia parties. Pro-Iranian Shia parties. The crisis reached its climax in the country as the government found that its coffers were empty when salaries were due last September. One of the things that Al-Kadhimi was complaining about, the prime minister prior to him had inherited a surplus of money for the government. But when Al-Kadhimi got there to take over, there was no money available to Iraq. None. And he wanted to know where the money went to. If you remember the story, he started to investigate people. He wanted to investigate Maliki. He was warned not to do so. And a clear signal was sent to Al-Kadhimi as his best friend was assassinated to send a message. But it didn't prevent Al-Kadhimi from doing. He went ahead and investigated the family members and found a lot of money that was allegedly hidden. So it doesn't take very much to put two to two together. So let's continue. It says the Iraq political parties affiliated with Iran launched a fierce attack on Sunday against the government of the Prime Minister Mustafa Al-Kadhimi, following his decision to devalue the Iraqi dinar against the US dollar in order to overcome one of the most serious crises in the country's history. So let me just take this time to give kudos to Al-Kadhimi. This is a man who inherited a government that was bankrupt, broke. He made a pain-making decision to devalue the currency, and now look at all the money they have. Look how strong their economy is. They seem to be back on track. We'll see what happens under this new government. So kudos to Al-Kadhimi. He done a phenomenal job. Said the government came to this step after it was unable to pay the salaries of its employees for 2 consecutive months, being forced to borrow from the Central Bank of Iraq and other internal parties. The government sells oil in US dollars, which it used to buy Iraqi dinars from the central bank in order to finance salaries and public services. Devaluing the local currency against the dollar means that it will get more Iraqi dinars from the central bank. The Iraqi Minister of Finance announced on Sunday that the official exchange rate has become 1,450 Iraqi dinars for every $1 US dollar instead of 1,119. Although the decision will harm employees in the short term, it has about a third. It's more like just slightly over a fifth, that's 22%, of their salaries have evaporated. It also deals a major blow to some Shiite parties affiliated with Iran. And let's find out why. These parties have banks that monopolize the circuit of buying dollars from the central bank, then reselling them on the black market, reaping a huge profit in the millions of dollars on a daily basis. The Islamic Dawa Party, led by Maliki, expressed anger at the government's decision, warning that the procedures of the Ministry of Finance and the central bank to change the exchange rate of the Iraqi dinar against the dollar will negatively affect employees, the poor, and others, which that part is true. But he was not concerned about other Iraqis. He's more concerned about the millions of dollars he was making on the black market. In a statement, the Dawa Party seemed to have convincingly forgotten that it had, during the 2 terms as prime minister of its leader, Maliki, squandered about $1 trillion of exceptional oil revenues at the highs of the rise in oil prices, back when, of course, he was the prime minister. It spent the money on buying political and popular loyalty on its unprecedented increase in the number of state employees and security agencies, which led to widespread political, financial, and administrative corruption, mismanagement, and the domination of certain families on the state. So this is what Sauder was talking about, why he did not want Maliki to be any part of the government. He is very corrupt. The irony was that it chose to open This said statement with the Quranic text, "Do not consume one another's wealth unjustly," to launch its attack on Al-Qadimi's government, indicating that this economic policy will not lead the country to a safe haven or dismantle the stifling economic crisis that has begun crushing many segments of society and that will create imbalances at all levels. It did increase the cost of goods, cause more people to go into poverty, but it definitely helped get the government back on track. You add that with the huge increase in oil prices, things were starting to line up pretty good. This is unofficial estimates indicate that the successive Iraq government that followed the formation of the first post-2003 invasion, Iraqi authorities were responsible for the disappearance of about $250 billion. This is under Maliki's group, the Coordinating Framework, which were set aside for reform in the sector of health, education, electricity, and public services. For his part, the second person you see in the picture next to Maliki, Kouaz Khazali, leader of a militia group, took advantage of the wave of popular anger against the government's decision to join in on Maliki's party campaign. Gee, I wonder why. Pointing out that what is currently going on in more than one file, the most important of which is the central bank, the Al-Fa port, and mobile phone companies, is the biggest theft in broad daylight, and unfortunately the political and public reaction to it is not as tough as required. Monopoly. Khazali, like Maliki, has a bank. What are the odds? That participates in the monopoly of buying dollars from the central bank and selling it on the black market, reaping huge daily profits. The decision to devalue the Iraqi dinar against the dollar eliminates these profits by up to 100% if market indicators continue to stabilize, as happened on Sunday, and they continue to stabilize. Khazali tried to mobilize politicians and public opinion against the government. They continue transformation of the economic situation from bad to worse, pretends catastrophic situations that will affect the country as a whole, and the citizens will be their first victim, said the militia leader, who figures on the U.S. terrorism list. So that is, one, pretty interesting that he is on the terrorist list and still manages to be walking around. And two, now he is a big part of this new government. While calling on the country's forces and personalities to take the required position, as issuing statements without taking practical steps at the level of parliament and putting pressure on the council minister will not be sufficient. Khazali urged the masses to express the rejection of what is happening now and stand up to it. Otherwise, matters will lead to undesirable consequences. Yeah, again, these two people aren't complaining because they care about what's going on with the Iraqi people. They care about the profits they were making on the black market. So when I tell you there's two more reasons to feel pretty confident that we're going to see some increases in the value of the Iraqi dinar, there's your two reasons right there. And for the same reason I made the case for the 322 rate, was if Maliki's coordinating framework people got in there, controlled the government, that they would do it just because they're corrupt, not because it's the right thing to do. Maliki, Khazali, and other Shia leaders insist on implementing Iranian policies to the fullest extent of Iraq in order to absolve themselves of all responsibilities and the consequences of the great economic collapse that Iraq is witnessing. Yeah, isn't that convenient? But observers say that the Iraq streets is aware of the real motives behind these parties' moves and of the damage to their interest. Well, they got a government, and it's being formed right now. So we're going to see what's happening. Would they give them a year and a half? I think what we heard is Sadr said they got 6 months. 6 months to look like they're continuing to reform the country. If not, all hell's going to break loose. A former Kurdish lawmaker said that the attack on the government must be directed at the parties in power since 2003 because they are the ones who brought the country to this impasse. She added that if Al-Qadimi is guilty of anything, it'll have to be of receiving power at the wrong time, as he has no way for finding solutions. He found solutions. He done a great job as a leader. It's unfortunate he didn't continue. He could have done wonders for Iraq, in my opinion. Despite the emergence of a parallel black market, selling dollars at a higher price, the difference was within a permissible margin of economic maneuvering. So that gap that was there that they were able to profit off of, and I'm talking about Maliki and Khazali, disappeared. However, recent months have brought many fluctuations in the exchange rate due to the Rona and the associated global financial crisis, and the decline in the Iraqi oil revenues after reducing the volume of its oil exports. Well, we know since then the value of oil has shot way up for them. So if you remember, there was an article, it was expected that Iraq would lock in the rate that we have now, 1,450 dinars for every $1. That was supposed to be locked in for 5 years. With this new government taking over, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the first step you're going to see at the very least is a reinstatement of the 1,190 dinars for every $1. Just depending on how profitable it is for Maliki and Khazali. We might see more increases depending on their level of greed. Or they might be content with that and they just stay somewhere around 1,190 for a little while. Again, the article spoke about, they use the government money to buy influence and power. And there was a time when Maliki went after Dr. Shabibi. He wanted to consolidate all the powers by trying to lie and accuse those who oppose him as being corrupt and it necessary for him to consolidate all the powers under Maliki. Maliki wanted to be the next Saddam Hussein. So he took a crack at it one time. Will he take a crack at it again? We're going to find out here soon. My prediction is yes, he's going to go for it. This is his last crack at it. Like Iran, he wants to turn Iraq into an Islamic state where it absolves him of all of his crimes that he's committed, along with his comrades there. But before they do, don't be surprised if you start seeing huge jumps in the value of the Iraqi dinar. It's one of the same things that Saddam Hussein did when he was in power. What he did was increase the value of his currency and force Kuwait to use the Iraqi currency. So, depending on where you are morally and mentally, this is a good thing or this is not a good thing. It's a good thing if you're looking to profit off your investment of the Iraqi dinars, but it going to 1,190 dinars isn't going to make you any money. You have to wait till they increase the exchange rate even more. I've read long ago one of the movements that Maliki wanted to make was to increase the Iraqi dinar to $1.12. So whether that's still something that's on his mind or not, we're going to see. But here's your 2 reasons to look forward to an increase in the exchange rate with the Iraqi dinar. Anyways, that's it for now, you guys. Let me know what you think. I look forward to comments down below, and I will catch you later. I am out.